Meeting was called to order shortly after 7:30. First order of business was a motion to approve the minutes of November 15, which was passed unchanged unanimously. Then it was next up was to place newly elected members to the RTM to committees. District 5 is going to have preference sheet filled out. District 3 made the following suggestions: Tiffany O'Connor to TGSNA, Leanne Zielinski to PHNS, Public Health and Safety. Mr. Kemp presented District 4, Kim Kiner to Parks and Rec. That's where we're up to.
Thank you.
All right. If I might suggest that Krista put something in chat so that everybody should at least look at it, that she already spoke to Alyssa Mahoney today, asking her to fill out the survey. So I'm just reading what's there.
All right.
And Seth, District 1 has not met yet. It's going to meet before the January 10th meeting.
Yeah, I saw that. Okay. Well, let's take care of these folks. That we've got 4 persons. Let's have a motion to confirm the assignments of the 4 folks. That would be Kristen. That's who was the first one? Mark?
I'm sorry, Seth.
Yeah, the first person. My writing isn't too clear here.
Oh, for District 5, Alyssa Mahoney?
Yeah.
But we didn't assign her.
We didn't assign her. We're sending her a preference sheet.
I thought that was, all right.
I refer to her as Alyssa Giannini.
All right, good. So it's just 3. We got Tiffany O'Connor, right?
Yes, Tiffany O'Connor, TGSNA,
Right.
and Leanne Zielinski, PA, Public Health and Safety.
And Kim Kiner for Park and Rec.
Yes.
So can I have a motion in favor of those, please?
I'll make that motion, Seth.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Any no votes? I don't see any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Great. We'll just have some more work to do when we get together on the 10th. Next is just conditions under which the Rules Committee will meet in person. Lois, I asked to do some looking into facilities, capabilities, and all of that. And so, Lois, maybe you could talk a little bit about that aspect of it.
Mike and I went over to Town Hall and looked at 206 in the auditorium because both of them can be videoed. They're marked, the 206 is marked off, and I believe that 15 people can sit, can be accommodated, spread out through the room for at least 6 feet apart. And then we looked at the auditorium. That would be more, and the auditorium can be used for rules also. Because it can be recorded, and there's lots of space to do rules in the auditorium. If we do rules in the auditorium, in order to, well, this may be true in 206 also, that we need to pass around a microphone so that it can be recorded. Mike, is that true that we would need to pass the microphone around also in 206?
No, we would not, depending on how they are spread out. My understanding is that they're going to alternate Board of Selectmen meetings of virtual versus in person, and they're testing a way to bring in people who are not there into the Board of Selectmen meeting. So we could, if that system works, we could copy what they're doing for the Board of Selectmen for rules.
And the idea behind that is that the rules meeting would then, if this technology works, which is what the Board of Selectmen is working with, right? The idea would be we could run a meeting, including those people present in the room as well as virtually, and it would be really one meeting because you could speak and do voting and things like that. Is that accurate?
Right, we just might have to change the night of the meeting, so on nights that we conflict with the Board of Selectmen.
So the advantage
Which
would,
isn't a, that doesn't become a problem. All we do is make it a special meeting and we can't amend the agenda. But that was one of the things that I was going to suggest, that it's time that we're able to do in person and virtual. And it shouldn't be as that difficult for a town with our resources.
yeah, well,
Kate is testing it with George, the IT guy, and Jim Cameron's asked to be there at the same time, just so he can see how the video of it would the mechanics of it would work. So they can be the guinea pig.
so that would work for rules because it's a limited size group. The RTM is a totally different story, but let's finish with rules first.
Yeah, and then I checked with Park and Rec, and we can get the room 206 for the 10th. So that room is I booked it, and I just took it and booked it. Doesn't mean if you felt that you wanted to do it in the auditorium, but I think we need the little closer space, that 206 offers, just to be able to communicate with each other.
Well, if 206 allows people to virtually be in the meeting also, I mean, that really is an optimal solution for the rules
Right.
meeting. Gives people choices.
Other than those who still feel that after the Thanksgiving holiday, as well as the Christmas holiday and New Year's, that the 10th is a little bit close and is contrary to what's going on medically, not only in town, but in the state itself. So
Well, my thought.
I don't know
Go
what's driving this, because these meetings seem to be working. And while it's nice for Kumbaya that we're all together, as long as this is also working, it looks like we're looking to have a fix for something that works, simply because there's a statement by saying that rules is now meeting in person. And I don't understand what the statement is, especially right after the holidays, when that's when infections have shot up consistently.
Can I say something? This is Patty. Hi, thank you. I'm sorry I was running late. I actually had to go to Walgreens and CVS to get some rapid tests because my son has to test each week to go into the office, and he had just gotten an email that someone had tested positive in his office. So as a result, I wanted to make sure my house was safe. I have a heart surgeon that lives in the house with us for the last few months, so I'm extra careful for his sake and for all of our sake. Can I tell you the line of people that were waiting to get those rapid tests today? And so that's what I've been doing the last hour and a half, trying to get them. So it is, I've always felt like I'm double vaccinated and I've got the third booster, but I was just there sensing how many people were trying to get these tests. So it's running through the community. People were there of all ages. So I would say I concur with Jack that this is working right now. And I do love the Kumbaya, and I do want to all have a beer after we can all be together again. But certainly not January, because we're going to have an effect now. I mean, if you look at Yale, they just talked about they may be they're now looking at doing a dedicated COVID floor, and they might even have to have a pop-up place. So hopefully that doesn't happen, but I think we should wait. There's no reason to do it right now. My opinion. Thank you.
Well, there's no reason to set the meeting tonight. to set the venue. We don't meet till the 10th. But I wanted to put this on the floor. Yes, we do have, because I think it's something that the Rules Committee has to consider. And I think the word kumbaya is a little bit light for what we do. We do the business of the town. We pass the laws of the town. And and we set the agenda for the RTM, and the dialogue that we participate in is, I think, more than kumbaya. So I would.
I'm gonna respond to that because Seth,
Well, excuse me, Jack. I
No,
have the floor. Jack,
Okay.
when you raise your hand, I'll be happy to recognize you. So I think it was important. It's important for us to have it before us and to listen to the arguments. Jack, you had something.
yeah, my reference to kumbaya wasn't to demean the RTM by any means, but we have been able to set ordinance, set the budget, set rules, have multiple meetings on this town in a virtual environment. And prudence, which is also part of leadership of a town's community, is showing that we're willing to take the lead, even if it's unpopular, and say for January, it's too early. So rather than not setting the venue, I'd like to put it to vote for the January rules meeting. That way the rules people are speaking. So I make a motion that for January, we continue in a virtual environment, and in the January 10th meeting, we can discuss whether or not we do a meeting in February.
Second. We have a second from Frank. Any more discussion? Okay, ready to vote? No votes, please. I see one. All right. In that case, we go to a roll call. Well, I don't think we have to. We have one no vote. Do we have any abstentions? Great, then I think the motion passes. And we'll bring this up again on the 10th.
Yeah, if I might have the floor again, I do believe that by February we'll be in much better shape with people having boosters. The town is getting nicely vaccinated. The one thing I might encourage, since this is public forum, that it appears that in the age category 25 through 44 has the lowest fully vaccinated rate of the categories, not dealing with the 5 through 11, but the rest are all in the 90s for being fully vaccinated. That group is under 80% being fully vaccinated and under 90% receiving. So if you're in that category, get vaccinated. That's my public announcement for today.
Thank you, Jack. Jack, could you give me the wording of the motion one more time? I want to make sure I got it right.
To the best of my recollection, that the motion was to meet virtually, the rules meet virtually for the January 10th meeting, and at January 10th, consider meeting in person for the February rules.
Thank you.
Okay. I also put on discuss conditions under which the RTM will meet. And Lois has done some investigation on that aspect of it. Lois, why don't you tell us what you found, at least as far as capacity and that sort of thing?
Okay, just so people have a feel, Seth called the other day and said, gee, you have your committee's working really well, so why don't you tackle this issue also? So that's why we followed up on.
Well, it has some technology to it, so.
It does. It really does. In this case, we're also, the RTM part is a little more formal and a little more complex. The next RTM meeting is until the end of January, so we can make any decisions for the RTM meeting at the January rules meeting. So that's the intention. So the idea is that the committee will work, we're working with Public Health and Safety on this, with Mac, Patrick, and there may be some others, and are going to incorporate recommendations because it's a 100-person body, which is different than a 12-person group. How, what kind of suggestions David has and those pieces. The other thing that Mike and I, as I mentioned earlier, were at the town hall, and we looked at spacing. We have to review it, but we thought that there was enough seats to do 120 people with 6 foot of space, with approximately 6 foot of spacing, alternating number of people in rows and things. We do need to relook at that, but it's pretty close to that. I mean, some of it may be 5 foot close. But what we really got to in talking about it was more of isn't there some way we can do an integrated virtual and in auditorium meeting? And the answer technically right now is no, unless the town spends some money. And even if it does, it won't be ready by January. And we're not sure that it would be ready even by April when the governor's position takes effect. So we've come up with some other ideas, which I call kludge, which are some combinations of trying to, put all the plugs in and see if the lights still go on. I don't know whether it's going to work or not. So we will meet and we'll discuss it. We'll also incorporate Jim Cameron because one of the issues is to make sure that Channel 79 can tape everything as well as everybody be heard and speak and how we would vote. So there's a bunch of work that that the Technology Committee plus MAC and with the little assistance from Jim Cameron are planning on doing over the next few weeks, holiday aside, to report back to the RTM on the 10th. But I would be really interested in any questions, concerns, comments, ideas that any of you have to assist. I don't want to resolve everything or go into long discussions, but suggestions or thoughts would be appreciated to make sure we cover as many bases as we can over the next couple of weeks.
Lois, I'd be interested in learning more about what what type of vendors are out there. I do a lot of business both on video teleconference and by joint video, large conference rooms with large video teleconference facilities, so that it is truly a joint. I hate to use the word hybrid; it's overused, but it's a hybrid situation where literally you may have 20 people in a conference room and then maybe 10 other conference rooms from all over the world, all in one meeting. And I think that's what we might be, looking to be able to have that capability of doing. I don't know how much money it costs. It's certainly not cheap. Yep. And but I think that's something we need to explore. I'd be happy to contribute in that area.
Mike?
Great.
We know how to do it. We're doing the Darien Men's Association every week with 50 people in the room and 50 to 60 people on Zoom. It's just cost money.
But I mean, like, for example, do you have this would be the vision I would have, and I'm not trying to be overly ambitious, but would be a situation where you would have, essentially a video wall somewhere.
The screen would come down, and the people on Zoom would be up on the screen who are calling in on Zoom.
Okay.
But it's cost money to do, and the point of view to date has been, well, we're going to be through this before we're really going to need it. So, but we do it every Wednesday. Anybody wants to see the link of how it works? It works fine. It just costs some money to put it together.
Mike, how much money are we talking about?
Yeah.
I don't know what the final amount was that the I don't know what the final amount was. The DMA made a contribution to the DCA, but I don't know what the final amount was. But, you know, we know who the consultant was who did it, and, you know, we know how to do it. It's just whether the town would want to spend the money to do it.
So the license.
To that point, Jack,
But it's 5 figures.
Excuse me, folks, the licensee
Okay, thank you.
is whom? Who's the licensee? Was DCA was the licensee? Or-
No, well, we did it at the DCA so that they can use it for they're using it for their meetings as well as the Dairy and Men's Association for ours.
Okay,
So-
so the town wasn't
Town wasn't involved in it at all.
involved.
No.
Okay. Mark, you had your
But
hand up?
it's exactly what Peter's talking about.
Okay.
thank you, Seth. I'd be curious what platform you're using, Mike, because what I've observed is in many institutions where that capability has been adopted, the long-term viability of the platform has been more than supported. I could see, Seth, where the town may want to have this platform available to it because it replaces travel. So it's not necessarily a pandemic solution solely, but ends up, we've found in our bank, for instance, and other organizations have found that T&E is dropping because people don't have to travel as much. I'm not saying it's a replacement for an in-person RTM, but it's a platform that probably the town should consider having available, whether it's for these meetings or any other purposes, because of the long-term economic benefits to having it available, despite the costs, Mike.
All right, well,
Mark,
let me, excuse me, folks, just,
my fault.
let me take that, and take it, just see where we go to get that sort of thing explored and done. I'll talk to Kate, probably not a bad place to start, and see if we can get some direction to be able to put some meat on that idea. Okay, I had some, yeah.
I the name of the consultant who did the work.
Oh, okay.
I just want to reiterate that part of the issue, and I think it's a good idea anyway, because I just think that we should have that capability in our town hall. But that part of the issue we have from an RTM standpoint is the legality of voting electronically, which we currently have through the governor's, whatever they call it. But anyway, through the governor's issue. But that can be removed. That may be removed at the end of April. But so that just needs to be considered in the process. I mean, I think the technology is a great idea just to do it. Whether or not the RTM in June or July can allow a remote voting, it will also be governed by the laws but whatever the governor, whatever is in place from the governor's standpoint. Who knows if they'll open it up on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, the legislators are specifically exempted from the traditional approach in the governor's proclamation back in June. And that does end April 30. But before we got too far down the line, I think we would go and see if we could get an indication from the governor's office of whether he's going to continue this thing or what he's going to do. That, of course, will be influenced by what COVID is doing, probably. Any other hands? Yeah, Patty, you have?
Yeah, I just want to say I concur with Mark and Peter on what they just said. And I would also reiterate that at the State of the Town on Monday, our new first selectwoman, one of her objectives, a core objective, is taking technology to the next stage. So I actually think it's perfect timing for us to be having these conversations and be proactive. Mike, was the 5-figure a 1-year deal, or is that's the investment and then we own it?
That's the investment, then you own it. You need a dedicated computer and then a lot of wiring into the sound system so you don't get the feedback. If you remember talk radio, they say, Patty, you're on the line, and in the background you hear the radio and they say, Patty, will you turn down your radio, please? Patty, will you turn down your radio, please? Well, they have to do the work into to the sound system of the auditorium so that you won't get feedback anytime someone tries to talk on Zoom.
Okay.
Thank you for
now
qualifying that was a
The
one-time
Board of
investment.
Education does it. The Board of Education does a great job. I mean, they do, that's how they do it.
Yeah,
Anyone else have some thoughts? Okay, well, so what we'll do is just continue the march, as we say in the Army, Lois, and bring more to the table here on the 10th.
Thank you.
Next,
It sounds as if Mark has the hiccups.
if somebody's got their, I don't know what that is that's on.
It's Mark. Mark is having a technical problem with his sound. You can see it going, toggling back and forth.
Okay. Well, and now that you've spoken up, Frank, I'll recognize you to talk about the updated right of the RTM standing assignment descriptions in the code.
Mark, are you back?
Fine.
There he is.
Can you hear now?
Hey, welcome back.
How you doing, Mark?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, we're back. Yeah, I lost about 3 minutes there. Apologies.
So,
Well, we just had
Seth
a
asked for an update.
discussion on. We just agreed that we're just going to continue exploring and developing the idea on how to solve the issue of the RTM.
Mark, how about phoning in and dump the video? Mark, how you doing?
I don't know what is that, Mark?
Yeah.
It's got to be, because everybody else has got their mic off except I think. All right.
Let me power through the Mark's hiccups. Seth had asked me to give an update on the project of revising the job descriptions or the duties of the 7 standing committees that is embedded in Appendix B. So here we go. Now that the 6 other chairmen's committees have elected their chairman, what TGS&A will be corresponding with them to start the process with their own reviews of just what they're responsible for. And we will do this once Jack has completed a preliminary matrix of departments. You described this a little bit in our last, he may jump in here, but he is doing a matrix describing our departments, commissions, and committees to take a first cut at where their budgetary responsibilities fall, committee by committee and department by department. Once this draft is in hand, we will open it up to the committees for their input, followed by any hearings that may be necessary. Recognize this could be a slow process, but it'll be very methodical and orderly and open to anyone who has a comment. Last thing we want to have happen is somebody say that Rules was jamming through a redefinition of the committees. So we will take it step by step. First step is to get that matrix in hand and bounce that up against what the committees are doing so that we get their buy-in before we start rewriting any code.
If I might add to it, this is what I was trying to articulate. I may have not done as good a job at the last rules. What I am doing is mapping, and there's several columns across the top, and the column headings are boards and commissions, departments, grants, union contracts, other organizations, and then others. So as you start to do this, one can assign who is the primary committee for various activities. And it's not just budget, because some of these boards and commissions have no spending authority. But when we go and look at it, you come across things such as the Town Plan of Development Conservation, which is PZ&H as well as Park and Rec, because it's a Park and Rec area, or the affordable housing report. So it's starting to capture all of the various responsibilities for, at times we're just a liaison, at times we're just following, but it becomes a good guide for rules itself for laying out which are all the areas. As I was doing it, as an example, I came to the realization that the library, which F&B has been following consistently, doesn't fit into other categories, and that is one of the grants. However, if when we did At Home in Darien, I recommended, and the rules agreed, that public health and safety is the lead on that, and F&B is secondary. So this basically is a mapping exercise, and once it's completed, it's going to be reviewed by Kate and Jen to see other changes that might need to be made. Part of it is easier for me because we've used the buddy system and it follows that. But it also comes across other areas that we might miss. So once that's done with Kate and Jen, then we'll send it out to the department chairs. When people agree to that, then we'll forward it to Frank, and that should help people create the verbiage necessary to define their committee. My personal goal would be to have this mapping added to the appendix to show what goes on, and there's certain things that we could add to all of them, such as, like building committees, as opposed to being a specific building committee. But there are like 9 union contracts, and so who's the lead on them? So it just sort of like guides through what's done in town, and doesn't mean that we have authority on all of it. Some does require RTM approval, others don't. But that's the mapping exercise. And I'm going to say it's about 60% done, 60 to 80% done.
Oh, good, Jack.
The way this may play out is that we're all waiting to see what this matrix looks like, and whether the matrix can be embodied in Appendix B or not, we will have to see. One way this may play out is that the general descriptions of what the committees are responsible for in Appendix B can be amended. Perhaps once we see at this matrix, which will be very helpful to rules in assigning issues to committees, primary and secretary, we may decide to include that as an Appendix E. I believe Appendix D right now is our fines schedule. So the next new appendix could quite well wind up to be this, which will be helpful to rules in the future. And so these two efforts can kick off as soon as we get that material in hand, Jack, and we've set the committee chairman to work in reviewing that material, but also looking at Appendix B. So that's a status report right now. TGSNA has its next meeting on January 18th, and so we expect to have this material in hand and start the process at that meeting.
Maybe.
January 18th, Jack.
Yeah, Frank, unlike TGSNA, there's a couple budget meetings in January.
What?
Well, when we talked a couple of weeks ago, you said you were 85% finished, and somehow this thing slipped back a little bit. So
yeah, because I added 2 more columns.
we want to get this thing going.
Well, you guys enjoy that. And if anybody has any thoughts or input, you have Frank's phone number and Jack's. But I think we're going in the right direction, which is good. It was needed. I remember getting a phone call when we were first handing out the preference sheets from Jack, and he said, I just read 3 of these, descriptions of what these committees do, they don't work. It's not right. So, now, it's good that we're rolling on this.
You should also know, Seth, that when I read one of them to a meeting that we had with Kate, I believe it was a joint meeting with Public Health and Safety, Kate's face dropped, and my response to her was, funny, Kate, that was the same face I made when I read these things.
Well, we're on the right track now, so that's great. Nice. That's a lot of work, Jack. So, thank you. Okay, next is update on Municode, the degendrification. I don't know if I invented a new word there or not, but you get the idea. Frank's in the soup on this one too, Frank.
Sure. We've got to figure out at some point whether it's degendrification or gender neutralization. There are a couple different ways that we could call this that won't ruffle people's feathers. So we've just received a progress report from Unicode. We've received a progress report from Unicode, which is about 48 pages long, and it suggests about 140 different paragraphs in which we may want to make changes. We're reviewing that now with Municode, and we'll have a report for rules when this review is complete. At our request, the words select man and chairman have not been included in this analysis, since these terms are firmly embedded in state statutes and are cross-referenced to our charter and code, under the assumption that when the state would like to make these changes to the term selectman and chairman, we will evaluate that for change on the local level. But as a first step, it seems reasonable for the RTM to consider the changes, and they will be presented to the RTM after a public hearing. But we've reviewed the sequence of events. It's got to come to rules, for instance, at the TGSA. TGSA will distribute it around and schedule a public hearing, because part of it has to do with a change in the charter, which is really good. The ordinances can be changed, as we know, by majority vote in a normal RTM meeting. But in that changes need to be done to the charter, that triggers a public hearing. And at that public hearing, we will hear for and against, and the RTM will then be much better informed as to what the constituents would like to do with this matter, and then we can take it up. So it will be interesting. It just has been a long time coming with more Unicode, but yes, it is moving along.
Great, Frank. Thanks. Jack?
Yeah, Frank, I understand the difficulty with selectmen. However, if anybody's receiving emails from me, I see more common now in business the term chair. So without any concept of whether or not it's chairwoman or chairman. So I would still suggest that we don't need to wait for the state to do something, since these are our ordinances, and that at least for the term chairman, we just change that to chair. And that's truly gender neutral.
Jack, those comments, as well as everyone else's comments, will be duly considered as we're looking at this thing. My own personal, again, I'm shepherding this through to see what happens. My own view is that just that the changes have to do with he and his that are prevalent in the old code. Note that all new code changes that the RTM has approved in the last 20 years have been gender neutral. What we're doing is going after the buggy whips that are in the system. We've been doing very well without gender identification for the last 20 years. So I will check with Wayne to see what the state has to say about all this, and we'll take it, as they say, take it under advisement. It may be that people will be kind of relieved that the word chairman is not being tampered with, and just leave well enough alone. I don't know. I surely thank you for your observation, but I don't know how this will play out.
Lois, and then Peter.
Unmute, Lois.
Lois, Mike, Lois.
Yeah. For the last 20 years, what has been done that makes it gender neutral?
You can choose to write a sentence so you don't have to get the person in there.
Oh, great.
I can give you some examples.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's we found it easy. Just to be careful and not to put he or his in a sentence.
Terrific.
It's just done.
Yeah.
Peter?
No, I just as an observation, I know of a town in New England that has moved from the calling their board of selectmen to just the town board, and so that people are board members, and there is a chair to that board, and that takes all the pronoun issues out of the equation. Just an idea.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. There is a.
You can tell how much I'm looking
Frank,
forward to this now.
I'm sorry, Frank. I spoke. Go ahead.
No. I was just saying to Peter, you can kind of tell how much I'm looking forward to this. But we will have a hearing, and everybody will have a chance to talk about it.
There are going to be a lot of ideas over the full spectrum, so it'll be entertaining.
Well, an interesting fact, when it does, since in changing the town charter, you need a public hearing, and we've conducted public hearings in the past for non-controversial topics where 2 old men and a dog will show up, and that will be very, it's a pro forma meeting. I have a feeling that something like this, like the bag ordinance or such, that'll be a little more public interest in getting it done or not getting it done. Now, my interest is in terms of our discussion about RTM in-person meetings. Looking way down the road here, there may be 2 hearings. It may be a hearing that is open to public under social distancing. People can come, and there's a timer on the, a timer where everybody gets 3 minutes to talk about it. And then in parallel, at the next night, might be a virtual meeting for people who felt that they didn't feel comfortable attending to the in-person. So we want to keep the thing as inclusive as possible. And personally, I'm looking forward to the in-person part of it if we can pull that off.
Thank you. Okay, that's it. There's one thing that came to my attention today on the horizon, and that is that the state legislature has redistricted the representatives and the state senators' districts, and that may have an impact on us. I don't have any more than that right now, but I'll have it on the next rules meeting when a little bit more is revealed. It's we just got the new districts and how that's going to impact the districts in our town, if at all, we haven't even come close to looking at yet. But I just want to throw you a heads up. That being it, unless there's
one other thing, if we're talking about heads up, it appears that the library is in need of a new vehicle, and that may be coming to the RTM in January. So there's some work that needs to be done on that, and some questions, but it may be done through their grant. So I just want to give a heads up on that. That's something we might see in January.
okay. Great. Well, unless there's other business, I'll accept a motion to adjourn. I have a motion from Mark. Oh, Mark, unless you. I have
Motion
a
to adjourn.
thumbs up from Peter. So I'll take Peter's thumbs up. Do I have a second to adjourn?
Second.
I got a second. That's it. Are there any no votes? Thank you, Patty, for lowering that. And are there any abstentions? I see none. The meeting is adjourned.
Good night, you all.
See you
Good
all.
night.
Merry
Good
Christmas,
night, everybody.
Happy New Year, Kwanzaa, everything. Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas.